Ura ng teams, no? Okay, so yan. Okay, so let's begin our lecture on nomenclature. When I say nomenclature, this is just naming, no? So, paano tayo nagne-name ng chemical formulas, no? Okay, so yun yung objective natin today, no? So, our objective is to be able to identify the rules in naming our ions and molecules, no? Okay, so kailangan alam natin yung name ng ions natin for us to name the ionic compounds. We should also be able to name molecules, no? Bakit, no? Later on, may papakita akong importance ng lesson na to. No? Kasi with the idea of nomenclature, hindi kayo ma-fake news, no? So, may incidents na ganun sa United States. Kwento ko later, no? So, yan. So, this is our first objective, to be able to identify the rules, no? And if alam nyo na yung rules, edi okay yon, no? And to derive the names of substances based on their chemical formula and vice versa, no? So this activity, no, will be left for you to practice naman, no? So yung naming ng substance based on formulas or identifying formulas based on the names, no? So I will give just few brief examples, no? Okay. So I believe this was discussed almost, this will be the third time, no, na madidiscuss to. Kasi the first one was your junior high school chemistry. The second one is your senior high school chemistry. You know, either Gen Chem or physical science. No? Ako nagtuturo ako dati ng Gen Chem pati physical science. No? So kino-cover namin to. So I believe na-cover din to ng teachers niyo dati. No? And ngayon yung third time na. So yan. So let's recall what are the rules, no, in naming our molecules and ions. No? So let's begin with ions. No? So we have two primary types of ions. No? So depending on the charge, no? Our ions could be positively charged and negatively charged. No? So when you say positively charged ions, no, it could be atoms or molecules as long as ion siya. We call it cations. No? So positive cations. No? Parang mga pusang naglalaro sa background ko. Then, pag negatively charged ang iyong atoms or molecules, you have anions na. Okay. And what do we know about the two? Positive charged particles attracts negatively charged particles now. So, that interaction is based on the law of electrostatics na. So, ang sabi ng batas ng kalikasan, ang positive attracted sa negative. So, as they do so, they form ionic compounds na. Again, bakit nga ba nagiging ion sila? The reason is they want to be stable, no? So, yun. So, dapat na re-recall nyo pa yung formation of ions, no? So, anyway, so yun lang yung idea, no? That positive particles loses electron for it to be stable. And ions gains electrons for it to be stable. And their opposite charges allows them to form ionic compounds, no? Okay, so how do we name ionic compounds now? So when naming ionic compounds, we write the cation's name first, then the anion's name now. So that means kailangan alam natin yung rules in naming our cations and the anion name now. So yung rule naman dito is self-explanatory, but we will discuss that further. No? Puntahan natin siya ng medyo malalim and bigyan ko kayo ng mga tips. No? Okay. So let's proceed with the cations. No? So cations muna tayo kasi ito yung unang papangalanan. No? So we have four basic rules in naming our cations. No? This is the first rule. Ang sabi dito, cations formed from metal atoms bear the name of the metal itself. No? Maraming uri ng metal sa periodic table. Kung titignan natin periodic table natin, there are metals that can be found in the s orbital. There are metals that can be found on the p orbital. Meron sa d, meron sa f. No? The question is, saan nagpa-pertain ang rule number 1? No? Well, rule number 1 pertains to the metals in the s and the p orbitals. No? Yung D and F, hindi natin yan papansinin for now kasi iba yung rules dito, no? Okay. So anyway, ay, Sara. Ba't ayaw niya mag full screen? Ay, wait lang. Ay, bahala siya. So anyway, mamaya ko na lang ayusin. Okay, so ano yung first rule natin? No? So the first rule states that the cation's name, no, the metal name is the name of the ion itself. No? Again, anong metals ang pinapatukuyan natin? No? We are pertaining to the metals that can be found on the S and P orbitals, no? Or the P blocks, no? Okay. So, bakit, no? Kasi usually, those metals found in the S and the P orbital only have one common charge, no? Paano natin nalalaman yung charge nila? Depending on the group number, no? For example, potassium and sodium, they can be found on group 1, no? Group 1 sila. So their common charge is positive 1 lang. Isa lang yung charge nila and that is positive 1 only, no? So yan. So how are we going to name them, no? Since potassium and sodium are in the s orbital, then the name of its ion is just the name of the metal itself, no? So yung pangalan ng ion niya, yung pangalan niya mismo, no? So yan. So anong pangalan ng K? Potassium. Ano yung pangalan ng K plus? Potassium din, no? Pwede mo lagyan ng ion, pero okay lang na potassium yan, no? Let's have sodium, Na. The name of Na is sodium. Pag yan naging ion, Na plus, ang name niya ay sodium pa rin, no? Okay, so let's proceed with another s orbital element, no? So calcium and magnesium, no? Remember, in group 2 elements, no? Their common charge is positive 2. That's why ang magiging name nila ay yung name ng metal na mismo, no? For example, we have calcium and magnesium, no? So calcium and magnesium, they are found in the s orbital or s block, no? So ang name ng ion nila is their name itself, no? Wala na tayong babaguhin doon, no? So calcium, ang name niya ay calcium. Ca2 plus, calcium pa rin ang name niya. Mg2 plus, magnesium pa rin ang name, no? Okay, so let's have another example na metal naman sa p orbital, no? So one metal in the p orbital is Al3 plus, no? Aluminum is in the third period, so its charge will be positive 3, no? So positive 3 yung charge niyan, no? If you could still remember the rules last time, no? And so group 3 siya, so positive 3 ang common charge niya. So since aluminum is in the p orbital or the p block, no? The name of this ion is the name of the metal itself, no? So ang name niyan ay aluminum lang. Pwede mo idugtong yung ion, no? Basta yun lang yung first rule, no? So again, so let's summarize the first rule. When your metal is found in the s and the p orbital, the name of the ion is the name of the metal itself, no? Yung pangalan ng ion in the s and the p orbital ay yung name ng metal mismo. Okay? So wala na tayong gagawing fancy-fancy doon, no? So yun. So yan. Bakit kailangan i-distinguish, sir, yung ano? Bakit kailangan i-distinguish yung ions depending on their location sa periodic table? Kasi iba-iba yung rules, no? So ano yung tip ko sa inyo dito? Pag S and P metals, that means I'm pertaining to the metals that can be found on the S and the P orbitals, no? The name of their ions is yung name na nila mismo. So yun na yun, no? Sir, paano yung nasa D and F orbital, no? So for those metals, no, iba yung rule, no? Punta tayo sa second rule, no? So ano yung sabi sa second rule? So usually, the elements or the metals that can be found in the D and the F orbital, they can produce different oxidation numbers or they can produce different charges, no? So iba-iba yung charges nila. So for example, let's have iron, Fe. Pwede yung Fe, ang iron natin, it could be 2 plus, pwede rin siyang 3 plus. And magkaiba sila ng properties. Okay, so magkaiba ng property ng Fe2+, magkaiba yung property ng Fe3+, no? When I say property, I'm pertaining to chemical reactivities, no? So yun. So meron kasi pwede mangyari na redox reaction between the two, no? So sa next chapter pa yun, no? So di-discuss din natin yan. So the point is, the two ions have different properties. They have different reactivities. So, their name should not be the same. So, hindi dapat iisa pangalan nila kasi magkaiba sila ng anyo, no? Para yung kambal, no? Pero yun, ang magkambal naman hindi naman parehas yung pangalan, 'di ba? So that means there should be different names for the different ions, no? So how do we do that, no? For metals, such as in those transition metals having more than one charge, no? We name them as the name of the metal and we enclose a Roman numeral indicating the charge, no? This is called the stock method, no? Okay, so paano yung stock method? So ang sabi lang doon is that the name of the ion is the name of the metal itself plus the charge, no? So kukunin mo pa rin yung name ng metal mo, pero this time you have to include the charges, no? How do we denote the charges, no? So we denote the charges using Roman numerals. For example, ito dalawa, 2 plus. So you write it as caps lock na Roman numeral 2. Or ito 3 plus. You write it as iron Roman numeral 3, no? So yan. So you enclose it in parentheses and take note, may spaces yan, ha? Okay. Okay, so ano yung point dito, no? So by including the Roman numerals that correspond to the charge, we are able to distinguish one ion to the other, no? So yun yung important kasi again, magkaiba sila ng properties, no? So kailangan mapakita natin yung kanilang different names din, no? So their name should reflect as well. Okay, so again, so paano yung stock method? So in stock method, we just copy the name of the metal and the charge are written as Roman numerals enclosed in parentheses, no? Okay. So yan. So iron 2 plus, 3 plus, no? Ang name niyan ay iron 2, iron 3. Copper plus, copper 2 plus, copper 1, copper 2. Ano pa? Let's have chromium. Si chromium, ito ay toxic eh. Meron niyang chromium 3 plus, may chromium 5 plus, may chromium 6 plus. Okay? Actually, marami pa yan, no? Hindi ko lang maalala yung iba, no? Okay, so yan. So, kung papangalanan natin tong chromium lahat, hindi siya maganda. Kasi ang property ng chromium 6 plus ay nakaka-cancer. Ito nakaka-cancer yan. Ito hindi, no? Yung 3 plus hindi masyado nakaka-cancer. So, dapat magkakaiba yung name nila, no? Depending on their chemical reactivity, no? I don't know if you are familiar, no? Pero since may time naman kayo to watch movies, I don't know if nasa Netflix to, no? Look for Erin Brockovich. Hindi ko alam kung ganyan ang spelling. So, Erin Brockovich, sa Google nyo na lang, no? That was a true-to-life story about chromium, no? Nangyari kasi nagka-chromium sa tubig sa somewhere in United States. Similar with Flint, Michigan, yung recent na nangyari. Although lead doon. Dito naman chromium. Ang nangyari doon sa area na may chromium is maraming nagka-cancer. Ayun. Basta panoorin niyo yung movie, medyo funny siya na sciencey stuff, no? Maganda siya panoorin. Ayan, share ko lang. Okay, so balik tayo. So yan, so again, I'm pertaining to 3 different ions of chromium. Therefore, the name should be different, no? Kasi magkakaiba yan ng properties. Ito nakaka-cancer, ito hindi masyado. Ito cancerous, hindi masyado. Ito hindi ko alam, no? Okay, so how are we going to name them, no? You just copy the name of the metal. In this case, chromium. Ayan, so yan, mga chromium yan, no? And ano pa yung sabi ng stock method, no? you indicate the charge using Roman numerals. No? So this is chromium 3, this is chromium 5, and this is chromium 6. No? Okay. Ayan, so alam nyo naman yung mga Roman numerals, di ba? So yan. So ganun lang. By the way, caps lock, no? Kasi yung quiz na ginawa ko dito, ang caps lock lang ay yung Roman numeral, not the metal's name, no? So yan lang. Okay, so that's the stock method. Again, so what's with stock method? This applies to metals, especially in the transition metals, which have more than one charge. Na. So yan. How do we name that? You just copy the name of the metal plus the Roman numeral include indicating the charge. Na. Compare that to the previous rule. Na. Kasi yung previous rule natin, tignan nyo, ang previous rule, we do not need to include potassium 1, calcium 2. No, no. Bakit hindi na, sir? Kasi usually, the metals in the S and the P orbitals have only one common charge. No? Yung common charge nila, isa lang. No? So, there's no need to indicate potassium 1, calcium 2. No? So, mga ganon, hindi na kailangan. No? Kasi pag S and P metals yan, fix na yung kanilang charge. No? Depending on the group number. However, if yan ay transition metal, you can have multiple charges. So you have to indicate the charge no, for you not to be confused. No. So yun lang, that's the stock method. No. This applies to the orbital elements no, or the D block elements, the transition metals. Yung inner transition kasi, we do not use them that much. No. Although we can use the rule ng stock method no, sa D and F orbital. Bakit hindi masyado familiar tayo with the F metals? Kasi ang metals in the F orbital, in the F block, sila ay radioactive na. And we do not deal with radioactive stuff in our daily life naman. No? So, ayan. Pero yun, this rule will apply to D and F orbital metals. No? Ayan. So, yun. Be careful ha. Tignan nyo kung nasan yung metal mo, kung nasan siya, nasa S, nasa P, nasa D, nasa F, kasi magkakaiba yung rules for that. No? Okay, so that's the second rule. No? So proceed tayo with the third rule. Okay, so the third rule is called the common method. No? Ay, teka lang. This is called the common name, no? Or the common method. No? This common method is used way back noong panahon pa ng alchemy, no? So, ang chemistry naman galing kasi siya sa alchemy talaga, no? Okay. So, ano meron dito, no? So, this is an old naming system. Ito yung pinakalumang system ng naming, no? Okay. So, paano yung ganap ng common name, no? So, ganito, no? Usually, there are metals with two charges only, no? Take note, dalawa lang yung charge ng ibang metals, no? For example, iron and copper. So, dalawa yung kanilang primary charges. No? Okay. So, in such cases, pag dalawa lang yung charges nila, we can use the common name as well. Bukod sa stock method. Pwedeng stock method, pwedeng common name. Kailan nag-a-apply yung common name? Pag dalawa lang yung charge niya. No? Pag dalawa lang yung common charges niya. Okay. So, paano sir yung chromium? Tatlo yan eh. So, ayun. Ito yung failure ng common name. No? Kasi recent lang naman yung mga discovery ng new elements such as chromium. No? So, yung chromium, marami pala siyang charge. No? So, hindi gagana dyan yung common name system. No? So, yan yung failure nito. Kasi luma na to. No? So, tanggapin na lang natin. No? Kasi matanda na siya. Respect. No? So, anyway. So, how do we use the common name? No? Ganito, no? Your metal should only have two charges. Dalawa lang dapat. Pag tatlo at higit pa, hindi pwede gamitin ito, no? Okay. So, how do we name the metals using the common name system, no? So, ganito lang, no? So, the first thing you have to do is to get their old name. Their old name, that could be the Latin name or basta yung old name nila, no? For example, iron. Bakit siya Fe? Because Fe, ang Latin name talaga niyan ay ferrum, no? Yung iron, ang lumang name niya ay ferrum, kaya siya Fe, hindi siya Ir, no? Kunwari, copper, hindi siya Co, no? Cobalt yung Co eh. Because copper, ang kanyang old name ay cuprum, no? Ano pa? Kunwari, lead, no? Pb. Ang lead natin, it could be 2 plus and 4 plus now. Okay. So yan, bakit PB yung lead, no? Hindi siya LE, no? O kaya LD, no? Hindi, no? Because the old name of lead is plumbic. Plumbum pala, plumbum. Plumbum. O kaya plumbum, no? Ayan, so yan. So yan yung mga old names nila, kaya ganyan yung atomic symbols nila, no? Okay, so yun. Yan yung mga old names nila. So yun yung gagawin mo daw muna dito sa common name system. You get the old name, the Latin names usually, no? So yun, kunin mo daw muna yung Latin name. Ferrum, cuprum, plumbum, no? O plumbum, no? So yan. Then ano daw gagawin mo? So after obtaining their old name, you get the root word, no? You get the root name, no? So paano kinukuha yung root ng name? Usually, what we do is just we remove the sa dulo, no? O, tanggalin mo yung sa ferrum, tanggalin mo yung sa cuprum, tanggalin mo yung sa plumbum, no? Okay. So that's the root name, no? So ganun yung ginagawa, ha? You get the Latin name and you remove the at the end, no? Para makuha mo yung root word. Fer, and plumb. So, yan. So, ano gagawin after that? No? So, after removing the sa dulo, ganito na. Since dalawa yung charge, you have to rank them. I-rank mo yung charge based on the lowest and the highest charge. No? So, for example, let's have iron, 2 plus and 3 plus. Now, paano natin i-rank sila? So, sino yung lowest? Of course, yung 2 plus yung lowest. No? So this will be the lowest. That means Fe3 plus would be the highest charge. No? So we are pertaining to the charge. So 2 plus is the lowest charge, 3 plus is the highest charge. Positive 1 is the lowest. Positive 2 is the highest, no, for copper. Positive 2 for lead is the lowest. And positive 4 is the highest now. Okay, so yun yung technique daw, sabi nila. No? So sabi nila, you get the old name, you remove the then you identify kung sino yung lowest charge, sino yung highest charge. No? Ito low, kasi 2 yan, ito 3, highest. Ito 1, ito 2, so 1 yung lowest, 2 yung highest. Ito 2 and 4, 2 yung lowest, 4 yung highest. No? Okay, so ano gagawin natin after ranking them based on their charges? No? So, ganito daw kasi. We use the suffix "us" to indicate the lowest charge ion, while we use the suffix "ik" to indicate the highest charge. No? So, paano gagawin doon? So, the lowest will have a suffix "us." The highest will have the suffix "ik." Ito, "us." Ito, "ik." "Us," "ik." No? So, ganun. Then, ano gagawin natin doon? Remember, kinuha natin yung root word ng kanilang old name, no? Yung fer, copper, plumb, no? Ano gagawin natin? Dudugtungan natin yun ng suffixes, no? Ng us and ik, no? So, that's why Fe2 plus will be named as ferrous ion. Ferrous ion yung kanyang name, no? Ang Fe3 plus naman, ang kanyang magiging name ay ferric, no? So, look, no? This is the root name, fer. Ayan yung fer. Ayan yung root name. Then, the reason why this ion is us is that lowest kasi yung charge niya, Fe2 plus siya. Ito, ik siya because it is the highest charge among the two charges na. So, ganun. Ito, low. So, that means us yung kanyang suffix, cuprous. Ito, high, positive 2. Compared sa positive 1, mas mataas yung positive 2, no? So, its suffix will be ik, cupric. No? Okay, so ganun yung kanyang process. No? For example, we have this, PB2 plus and PB4 plus. No? So, remember, the root name is plumb. no? Plumb, no? Then, pag lowest, ano yung nilalagay? Us. So, Pb2 plus will be named as plumbous ion, no? And Pb4 plus, since siya yung highest, ik yung gagamitin na suffix. So, plumbic and plumbous, no? Okay, so ganun yung rule sa ikatlo, no? That's the common name rule, no? So, paano ulit? You get the root name. After getting the root name, you remove the end part, no? Yung usually, no? Okay. Pag may Latin name, pag hindi siya Latin name, alam ko hindi na tinatanggal yung dulo, no? For example, cobalt, no? Ang cobalt, hindi siya Latin name kasi recent discovery yan, no? So, pwede siyang cobaltus, pwedeng cobaltic, no? So, yan. Pero kapag Latin name yung kanyang root name, you remove the then you differentiate the two charges, no? Kung sino yung lowest, sino yung highest. The lowest will bear the suffix "-us", the highest will bear the suffix "-ik", no? So then you affix the suffix sa name, no? So ferrous, ferric, cuprous, cupric, plumbous, plumbic, no? Okay, so anong downside ng common name, no? The downside is that it is limited to 2 charges only. Okay, so yun yung isang downside niya. Paano kapag tatlo na yung charges? Wala na, no? Kaya gumawa sila ng stock method, no? Kasi hindi niya na-address yung issue ng 3 or more charges, no? Such as vanadium, chromium, no? So, ganun. Wala siyang way to differentiate the charges kasi dalawa lang yung kinukuha niya, highest and lowest. Anything in between cannot be addressed by this method of naming. So, yun yung downside niya. Number one, this is not applicable for ions for metals with multiple charges, no? Such as vanadium. Alam ko vanadium 5 yung charges niya. Chromium usually 3 or 4 charges yun. So hindi gagana sila dito. Ano pa yung downside nito? Okay. So kunwari magre-reverse process tayo. Kasi ginawa natin, we have the ion formula, tapos kinuha natin yung name. Okay? So from the ion formula, kinuha natin yung name. What if baliktarin natin yung process? We are given the name, hahanapin mo yung formula. Doon medyo mahirap ang common system. Bakit? No? Kasi tignan mo. Kunwari, takpan natin to. Urong natin. Ayan. So, kunwari, between ferrous and ferric, ano kaya formula niyan? Ganito yung intuition dyan. Fer, ibig sabihin iron, Fe. Fe yan. Alam ko Fe yan. Pero, tignan mo, us and ik. Alam ko yung us lowest, no? Ang ik highest. Pero, by how much? Ano yung charge? Pag hindi mo kabisado, hindi mo masasagutan, di ba? So, baka yung us positive 1, baka yung ik positive 2. Baka yung us positive 1, yung ik positive 3. O, di ba, manghuhula ka ng charges kung sino yung lowest, sino yung highest. And nangyari sa akin yun, no? Nung high school ako. Third year high school ako, nakalimutan ko, ano ba yung us? Ano ba yung ik? No? Nakalimutan ko yung corresponding charge niya. So, nagkamali ako sa item na yun, no? So, doon nagsimula ang hatred ko sa common name, no? Kaya, when I do my researches, I use the stock method talaga, no? Kasi, tignan mo, no? Kunwari, hahanapin mo yung formula ng name. Formula from the name. Iron 2, o madali lang yan. Fe yan na 2+. Iron 3, Fe yan na 3+. Copper 1, copper yan na positive 1. Copper 2, copper na positive 2 yung charge. Di ba madali na? Unlike the common name, pag hindi mo alam yung number for the corresponding lowest and highest charge, you're stuck, no? Mare, plumbous, plumbic, di ko alam. Baka positive 1 to, baka positive 2 to. So, nanguhula tayo. So, yun yung downside niya, no? That's why we adopted in science the stock method instead, no? Although, the common name is still used today, especially in medicine. Alam niyo yung ferrous sulfate, no? Yung lasang bakal. Kasi may bakal doon. Yung ferrous sa ferrous sulfate, yun ay nagpe-pertain sa Fe2+. Ferrous sulfate. Yun, Fe2+ yung nandun. Kaya lasang bakal, no? Ayun, no? Lobat eh. So, yun. Ginagamit siya sa medicine, sa pharmacy field, no? Pero in scientific field, we do not use it that much kasi it's confusing, no? Especially if you forgot the charge, no? So, yeah. Pero at least we know, no? Na yung medicine natin, they make use of this rule, no? So, para hindi tayo ignorant kung ano ba yung mga chemicals na nasa gamot natin. No? Kasi yun nga, mamaya may kukwento ako about that. No? Especially sa panahon ng fake news. No? Uso yun. Okay. This is the last rule. So, ano mapapansin nyo? The first three rules are pertaining to cations that are metals. The first rule is for metals na nasa S&P. The second rule is metals for the D and F. The third rule is metals again for the D and F, but with two charges only. The fourth rule is different, no? Because we can form cations from non-metal atoms, no? So if you combine different atoms, no, depending on the number of electrons that they have, no, pwede sila maka-form ng cations. And paano mo malalaman na non-metal ions yon? Usually, ang ending nila ay ium, no? So, and dalawa lang sila, no? So, ito, kailangan nyo na lang ito kabisaduhin. Dalawa lang naman yan eh. So, kayang-kaya nyo yan. Okay, so, what are the two non-metal cations? So, we have H plus and NH4 plus, no? Okay, so let's have H plus. H plus is derived from hydrogen atom, which lost an electron. Nabawasan siya ng isang electron, no? So, when hydrogen loses an electron, it becomes proton. No? Proton lang siya, wala na siyang identity. Okay? So, yun, proton siya or hydronium ion. No? So, again, paano kinuha yung name? You just get the name of the atom, hydrogen, and lagyan mo lang ng suffix na ium. No? Siyempre, pagandahan na lang ng name. Pangit pakinggan yung hydrogenium na sagwa, di ba? Mag-work around na lang tayo. Hydronium, di ba? Ang fancy pakinggan. So, ganun na lang, no? Kabisaduhin na lang natin kasi dalawa lang yan, no? So, H plus, hydronium ion. Saan galing siya? From hydrogen atom. That lost one electron, no? So, isang electron yung nawala. Kaya naging cation siya. Another non-metal cation is NH4 plus, whose name is ammonium ion. Ito, familiar kayo. Nangyari to last time sa Beirut. Ammonium nitrate. Ito yung ammonium doon, NH4+. No? Ginagamit yan sa fertilizer at sa paggawa ng bomba. No? So, yun. Okay, so, yun, ammonium. No? Ito yung nagbibigay ng nitrogen sa halaman, no? In the nitrogen fixation processes. No? Share ko lang. Okay, so, yan, ammonium. It is derived from ammonia, NH3. Mabaho to. If familiar kayo. So what happened sa ammonia, nalagyan lang siya ng hydronium ion. So if you added one hydronium ion to ammonia, the formula will become NH4+. No? Tingnan nyo yung difference ng H, isa. Then ano yung difference ng charge? Positive 1. No? The positive 1 charge is because of this H+, na nadagdag doon. Okay? So, yan. Anyway, so yun lang yung idea na ammonium ion is derived from ammonia with hydronium ion. No? So, nadagdagan lang siya ng hydronium ion. So, NH4 plus yung kanyang formula. So, dalawa lang yan. You have to remember them. No? So, let's summarize the rules. No? So, rule number 1. For S&P metals, usually their charge corresponds to the group number. The name of the ion is the name of the metal itself. No? Walang Roman numerals pag S&P metals kasi iisa lang yung kanilang charges. Pag D and F metals, dun na nagkakaroon ng multiple charges. No? So, in addressing that issue ng multiple charges, ang gagawin natin is to indicate the charge using Roman numerals. No? You copy the name of the metal and then you enclose the charge. You indicate the charge using Roman numerals enclosed in parentheses. No? So, yan. That is the stock method. The other method is the common name method. No? This only applies if your metal have two charges lang. No? So, it doesn't apply to all. No? Okay, so yan. Dalawa lang yung charge. Ano ginagawa dito? You get the old name or the root name, no? For example, iron, ferrum, copper, cuprum, lead, plumbum, no? Mercury, hydrargyrum, ano pa? Um, gold, aurum, silver, argentum, no? Mga ganun. So, kukunin mo yung mga old name. Then you remove the ending part, especially if that's Latin, no? So you remove the no? Pero kapag di yan Latin, wala kang tatanggalin, no? Such as cobaltus and cobaltic, no? Okay, so cobalt, wala siyang Okay. So yan, no? So yung mga tinatanggal for Latin names, then we replace that with the suffix us and ik, no? The us will pertain to the lowest charge, and the ik will pertain to the highest charge. Ferrous, Fe2+. Ferric, Fe3+. The downside is, number one, limited siya for 2 charges only. Another downside is that if you are going to reverse the process, you start with a name, then hahanapin mo yung ion, hindi mo alam yung number ng charge, no? So you really have to remember, no? Kaya medyo pangit to. Kunwari, ferrous, di mo alam. Positive 1, positive 2, positive 3. Wala na. Nanghula ka na, no? So yun lang yung downside niya, no? That's why I prefer stock method, no? And the last rule for cations is this one, no? So the cations formed from non-metal atoms will have the suffix -um, no? So dalawa lang sila, so remember them. H plus hydronium, NH4 plus ammonium. Okay? So yun yung ating mga cations, no? Now, we will proceed with the anions. By the way, pag nag-quiz kayo dito, you can use the PowerPoint, no? Feel free, no? Kasi hindi alam ko hindi niyo kabisado yung lahat 'to, no? Pero alam ko familiar kayo sa iba, no? Pero basta 'yun, no? 'Wag na kayo muna magkabisado ngayon, no? Basta alam niyo yung rules, no? Okay 'yan, no? Okay. So let's have the anions. Again, anions are negatively charged particles, no? So we have 4 rules again here, no? 4 uli yung rules natin na simple lang, no? So this is the first rule. Monoatomic anions will have the suffix "ide" or "ide", no? Para silang mga Japanese, no? "Ide". So yan. So when we say monoatomic anions, that means isa lang yung atom mo. Sa H minus, isang atom lang yan ng hydrogen. O minus 2, isang atom lang din yan ng oxygen. Cl minus, isang atom lang din yan. Br minus, isang atom lang din yan. No? So these are our monoatomic anions. No? Again, the charges depends on the group number. No? So yan, yung hydrogen, mapapansin nyo, pwede siyang positive 1, pwede siyang negative 1. Pwede yan. Ganun siya ka-versatile. Okay, so, pero yung iba, fixed na. For example, chlorine, bromine, they are in the group 7, no? So, their charge is negative 1 talaga, no? Because they will accept 1 electron to be stable. Oxygen is always negative 2, no? Bakit, no? Kasi group 6 siya. 2 electrons away siya from the noble gas configuration. Okay, so ganun lang. So, how do we name these ions, no? So, ganito. You get the name, no? Hydrogen, oxygen, chlorine, bromine. Then, you change the in or the ogen, no? Palitan mo yung ending nila with ide, no? Or ide, no? So, hydrogen minus, H minus. Ang kanyang magiging name ay hydride, no? Hindi siya hydrogenide. Bakit? Ang pangit kasi pakinggan ng hydrogenide, no? Medyo weird sila. So, yan. Hindi siya hydrogenide, hydride, no? Oxygen, 2 minus, O2 minus. Ang name niya ay oxide, not oxygenide, no? Kasi, again, for the reason na pangit siya pakinggan, no? So, oxide na lang daw. For chlorine, hindi siya chlorinide, ha? Sagwa pakinggan. Chloride, no? You remove the ending part lang na maganda pakinggan, no? But anyway, all the ions are listed naman, no? If you have periodic table with you, tingin ka lang sa likod nun, may ion names na doon, no? So, you don't have to worry that much about the pagandahan ng name, no? So, Br minus, this is bromine. its ion name will be bromide, no? Again, as long as you see the ide part, no, yung ide na yan, that means they are anions, na. So, anions na monoatomic. Isang atom lang na anion, no? So, yan yung first rule. Ide, pag nakita nyo yung ide, monoatomic, anion yan. Okay? So, the charge depends on the group number. For group 4, ang kanilang charge minus 4. Group 5, ang kanilang charge negative 3. Group 6, ang kanilang charge negative 2. And group 7, ang charge nila ay negative 1. No? Example, nitrogen minus 3. Monoatomic anion yan. So, its name will be nitride. No? Hindi siya nitrogenide. No? Nitride daw. Pagandahan na lang. No? Yan. So, nitride. Are, P minus 3. Ang name niya ay phosphide. No? Hindi siya phosphoroside. No? So, yan. Anyway, the names of the ions are already listed naman. No? All we have to do is just be familiar with the rules. No? As long as you see the ide, that means monoatomic anions yan. No? And their charge depends on the group number. No? Ito yung mga group numbers. No? So, yan. So, that's the first rule. You have to remember. Punta tayo ng second rule. Second rule pertains to polyatomic anions, no? Especially with oxygens. Okay, so when you say polyatomic anions, meaning maraming ions. Maraming atom pala, no? So, hindi lang isa. Pwedeng dalawa, pwedeng tatlo, pwedeng apat, no? Depende sa trip ng molecule, no? So, the first category of our polyatomic anions is the anions with oxygen, no? So we call the oxygen anions as oxyanions, no? So again, ano uli yun? Pag yung iyong anion may mga oxygen, you call them oxyanion, no? So how are we going to check kung oxyanion yon? Usually it bears the suffix ate and the ite, no? May ate at ite siya sa dulo, no? 'Di ba yung ide pag monoatomic, no? Pag ate, pati ite, ate and ite, ito ay for the polyatomic naman, no? So, yan, may distinction, ha? Okay? Though, this is general rule, no? It doesn't apply to all, pero yan yung quick check natin, no? Para malaman natin kung monoatomic siya or polyatomic, no? Okay? So, ganun lang. Okay. So, kailan daw nagkakaroon ng ate na suffix, the ate, no? The ate suffix is used for the common oxyanions. And don't worry, ito ay given. Given yan. Ito ay given naman, no? So, nothing to worry that much. Yan, yung ite daw, the suffix ite, this is used when the molecule is one oxygen less than the common, no? So, let's have some few examples, no? So, NO3, this is the common daw, sabi nila, no? So, it is ate in suffix, no? So, paano ginawa yan? You get the first element name, nitrogen, sulfur, then palitan mo ng ate because of the oxygens, no? So, N, nitrogen, since may oxygens yan and anion yan, nitrate, no? S, sulfur, since may oxygens yan and anion siya, the name will be sulfate, no? Okay, so the common oxyanions are already given. Wag nyo nakabisaduhin, no? Or just be familiar, kay bahala, no? And this topic is more on memorization or familiarization naman, so depending on your technique. Okay? So NO3, this is the common daw, no? So tanggapin na lang natin na ito yung common. Yung SO4, negative 2, ito din daw yung common. So their names will have the suffix ate, nitrate, sulfate. So NO3 minus SO4 negative 2. Remember ammonium nitrate, ito yung nitrate sa ammonium nitrate, na. Ayan. Ito yung ginagamit sa bomba din. And sa fertilizer. Okay. So tingnan niyo yung counterparts nila. Yung ite. Look, na. This is nitrite. This is sulfite. Bakit? Kasi kung titignan niyo, these molecules, ito pati ito, they are one oxygen less, no? 1 O less than common, no? Kung mapapansin nyo, 1 oxygen less sila. 1 oxygen less than common. Their charge will not change, no? Yung oxygen number lang magbabago. Kasi tignan nyo, ito 3, ito 2. So, kung ito yung 3, ito yung ate, yung 2, dapat ang kanyang suffix ay ite. Okay? So, this is 4. This is the common daw. So, ate yung ending niya. Pag binawasan mo yan ng isang oxygen, SO3 na yan, so its name will end with ite suffix, no? So, yun lang yung rule. Pag common, ate. Pag one oxygen less than the common, ite ang ending, no? So, yan. Tignan yung difference ng oxygen, no? Isa lang. This is one oxygen less than this. So, this is sulfite. Not sulfate, no? Sulfite. This is one oxygen less than this. So, its name will be nitrite, not nitrate, no? So, yun. So, yun lang. Sir, paano namin malalaman kung ano yung common oxy and ion? Okay, so you have this table now. So, this is the table that you have to remember or familiarize. Kay bahala na. So, bibigay ko na yung mga names nila para hindi na kayo mag-worry. No? Okay. So, CO3, this is the common oxy and ion for carbon. Ang name niya ay carbonate. No? Carbonate. Ito yung nasa baking soda, nasa soft drinks. No? So, yan. So this is the carbonate, this is the common oxy and ion. Question, does it have an ith counterpart? May CO2 negative 2 ba yan? Wala po. Sabi niya wala daw. No? Okay, so wala siyang ith counterpart. So as is na yung carbonate, no? Isa lang yan, no? So wala siyang ate, ay wala siyang ite counterpart, no? So wala na tayong i-worry masyado. NO3. Name niya ay nitrate. No? Alam natin that it has a counterpart na NO2 negative. Ang name niyon ay nitrite. No? So, yan. No? Remember nyo na lang. No? Anyway, nasa PowerPoint naman lahat. No? Phosphate. No? Ang phosphate natin, alam natin, meron niyang counterpart daw. No? Pangalan nun ay PO3 negative 3. Phosphite ang name niya. So, binibigay ko na yung name. No? Kabisaduhin nyo na lang. Phosphite. Ano yung mapapansin nyo? This is just one oxygen less than the common. Tatlo yung oxygen dito, apat. No? So, yun yung difference. No? Tig-isang oxygen. Sulfate. No? Ito yung example kanina. May counterpart yan. Ang name niya ay sulfite. No? So, one oxygen less than the common. So, ito na yung mga names ng ith counterpart nila. So, kabisaduhin na lang natin or take down notes na lang. No? Kasi wala na kayong gagawin, no? You just have to be familiar na lang, no? This is nitrate, this is nitrite. The difference is, this is one oxygen less than the common. This is phosphate, this is phosphite. This is sulfate, this is sulfite. Ano yung difference? Isang oxygen sila less than the common. No? So, ito yung mga common. No? So, listed na silang lahat. No? Okay. So, let's have chlorate. No? So, the common oxy and ion for chlorine is ClO3. Whose name is chlorate, no? Chlorate. Ito yung nasa mga, and then, mamaya pa pala yun. No? So, anyway. So, ito yung, common oxy and ion niya, chlorate, ClO3. Anong note natin dito? This is extendable up to 4 versions, no? Ibig sabihin, hindi lang siya ite. Hindi lang ite yung meron siya. May dalawa pa, no? So, ano kaya yun, no? So, puntahan natin yung dito sa next slide. So, ang sabi dito, some oxy and ions can be extended to form 4 versions or 4 members such as the chlorate, no? Apat yung kanyang uri, no? Okay. So, tignan natin itong apat na uri niya, no? Okay. Ito yung apat na uri ng chlorate, no? So, you have your base. This is the common oxy and ion, the chlorate, no? If you remove one oxygen sa chlorate, its name will be chloride. No? And the formula will be reduced by one oxygen. Tatlo dito, dalawa ngayon dito. No? So yan, this is the chloride, this is the chlorate. No? Okay, so ano pa yung dalawang extension? Ito, our chlorate can have one extra oxygen. May one oxygen more than the common siya. Instead of 3 yung oxygen, pwedeng maging 4, ClO4. Ano yung gagawin mo dyan? You copy the chlorate, no? Copy mo lang yan kasi that's the common. Pero you will add a prefix per, no? So again, if you have one oxygen more than the common, it will have a prefix per, no? So yun lang. Ano pa? So ito yung ate, ite, alam na natin yung rules diyan. Isang oxygen lang difference nila, no? Ite is one oxygen less than ate. Si per naman, this is one oxygen more than the ate, no? So per chlorate, no? You copied the chlorate, you add the per, indicating that there is one more oxygen, no? Punta naman tayo dito sa baba, no? Sa chlorite, no? So, tignan niyo yung difference na itong dalawang molecule. This have two oxygens, this have one oxygen only, no? Dalawa oxygen, dito isa. So, ano na? So, ano yung difference nila? Isang oxygen. So, if your chlorite, no, pwede pa siya tanggalan ng isang oxygen, pwede ka gumamit ng prefix na hypo. Hypo meaning nabawasan na naman ng isa pang oxygen. So, you copy the chlorite, no? Kasi dito ka nagbawas ng isang oxygen, no? So, yan. So, if yung chlorite nyo, kaya bawasan ng isa pang oxygen, its name will be hypo, no? Chlorite, no? You will use the prefix hypo. And by the way, as far as I know, ito lang yung ganito yung version yan. Chlorate lang yung ganito yung formulas, no? So, memorization na lang talaga, no? So, yan. So, I will leave that for you to remember the rules, no? Again, you can use the PowerPoint when taking the quiz, no? You can use your periodic tables, no, when looking up for the names, no. But I want you to be familiar with the rules. Yung ite, one oxygen less than the ate. Yung hypo, one oxygen less than the ite, no. So ganun yung pagkakasunod-sunod, na. Yung per, that is one oxygen more than the ate. No? So yun, keep in mind na lang. Okay? Last rule. Ay, malapit na tayo matapos. Hanggang anong oras ba tayo? Hanggang alauna pala tayo. Ay, gutom na ako. So anyway, so last rule, no? So let's have the last rule. Anions derived by adding hydronium ion to an oxyanion are named by adding as a prefix the wala na ano na ako diyan. Madaling araw ko ginawa tong PowerPoint dati, so nabulol na. So anyway, so ano lang yung idea diyan, no? The idea is ganito. 'Di ba we have our oxyanions, carbonate, phosphate, sulfate, no? So on and so forth, no? Sabi doon, if we add hydronium ion to this oxyanions and still ended up with another anion, then we can name them by adding the word hydrogen or bi or dihydrogen, no? So ano 'yon, sir? Ganito lang, no? So look at this, no? This is our carbonate ion, no? So kapag naglagay tayo dyan ng hydronium ion, let's check if we will still end up with another anion, no? So pag naglagay ng H+, tignan natin kung anion pa rin yan, no? So paano yung gagawin natin dyan, no? So this is basically chemical reaction, yes, no? So gagawin mo lang, you will add the H dito sa CO3, so you will have HCO3. Then, ano gagawin mo sa charges, no? You will add them. This is -2 in charge. This is +1. So, -2 plus 1 is -1. Ano napansin natin? When we added hydronium ion to carbonate, we ended up with another anion. Ang name nito, hindi na siya pwedeng carbonate. Kasi hydrogen yung nadagdag eh. Iba na yung charge niya. So, how are we going to name this, no? So, sabi dito, if you add one hydrogen, you can use the term hydrogen or the prefix bi. So, ilalagay mo yun kapag isang hydrogen lang yun nilagay mo and you still ended up with an ion, no? So, I added one hydronium ion to my carbonate. I ended up with an ion. So, ano gagawin ko sa name niya? You just copy the name of the oxy anion, pero maglalagay ka ng hydrogen or the bi prefix na. So, ito na yung magiging name ng iyong anion na. This is hydrogen carbonate or bicarbonate which is found in your baking soda. No? And meron tayo niyan sa dugo, no? Bicarbonates. So, yun. So, again, paano ulit, no? If you added one hydrogen to your carbonate and then you ended up with another anion, gagawin mo ang name niya ay lalagyan mo ng hydrogen lang or the prefix bi. So again, reiterate ko lang, kailangan anion pa rin, ha? Pag yan hindi anion, edi wala, hindi gagana yan. No? Baka kasi may gumawa sa inyo neto, no? Sabi natin, uy, ito nitrate yan, di ba? Lalagyan ko siya ng H+, HNO3. Tignan nyo yung charge. -1, +1, wala na siyang charge. So, ang name ba niyan ay binitrate? Ang name ba niyan ay hydrogen nitrate? Well, hindi, no? Hindi gagana yan. Again, this rule will only be used kapag anion dapat. Kailangan anion dapat yung maging product, no? Kaso this time, nawala na yung charge. So, the rules ng bi, pati ng hydrogen, hindi nagagana dyan, ha? So, yun. Just be careful. And to be fair, no, listed naman lahat ng name ng anion, no. Mamaya may papakita ako. Kahit yun na lang yung tignan nyo. Ang ginagawa ko lang, in-explain ko lang bakit naging ganun yung names, no. Okay, so let's have another example. We have phosphate, PO4 3-. If I add one hydrogen to this, ano mangyayari sa charge? Yung -3 plus 1 magiging -2. Nadagdagan ng H yung formula, no? So, since I only added one hydrogen sa phosphate ko, the name will have the hydrogen or the bi prefix, no? So, dudugtong ko yan. Meaning yan, pag hydrogen phosphate or biphosphate, meaning nun, isang hydrogen ang aking dinagdag, no? Sa aking phosphate, no? So, yan. So, paano kung magdagdag uli ako? No? I have my biphosphate. I will add another hydronium ion. So, tingnan natin if we will still end up with another anion, no? So, this is -2. This is +1. -2 plus 1, negative. Ibig sabihin, anion uli ito. So, our rule can be used, no? Okay. Since dalawa na yung hydrogen na nalagay natin, this is the second hydrogen. Dalawa na yung hydrogens na nadagdag natin. So, hindi na pwedeng hydrogen or bi. Hindi pwedeng biphosphate. Doble-doble ka na. Hindi rin pwedeng hydrogen phosphate, no? Instead, kapag dalawang hydrogen na nilagay mo, you will just use the word dihydrogen phosphate, no? So, pag isang hydrogen nilagay, hydrogen phosphate lang or biphosphate. Pag dalawa na, dihydrogen lang, no? Sir, pwede ba ako magdagdag pa ng H+ dyan? Tignan natin. May trihydrogen ba, sir? Tignan natin. Tignan natin. Let's have H2PO4. Pag naglagay ulit tayo dyan ng H+, ano mangyayari? H3PO4. What will happen to the charge? This is -1. This is +1. -1 plus 1, 0. Ibig sabihin, hindi na ito anion. So, hindi gagana yung rules natin dito kasi hindi siya anion. Remember, anion dapat ang tinutukoy natin dito. Okay? So, those are the basic rules, no, in naming our anions, no. So, balikan natin isa-isa para masaya ang buhay. Recall tayo. For monoatomic anions, they will have the suffix ide, no. The charge of those monoatomic anions depends on the group number. Pag group 4, -4, group 5, -3, group 6, -2, group 7, -1. Ide yung suffix nila. For polyatomic ions with oxygen, they will have the suffix ate or ite. No? Ate is given for the common oxygen ion. ite is given for oxyanions that is 1 oxygen less than the common. So, ano yung mga common? Ito po. No? Ito yung mga common natin. And ito yung mga ite counterpart nila. No? Nitrite, phosphite, sulfite. No? But looking at ClO3, no, it can be extendable to 4 versions. No? So, pag 4 versions, this is rule number 3, ganito lang. Your ate and ite, ganun pa rin naman. No? The difference is 1 oxygen. But, ano yung extension? The usage of per and hypo. Pag per, meaning yan, your ate version, nadagdagan siya ng isang oxygen na. Yung hypo naman, yung ite version yan, nabawasan ng isa pang oxygen. So, from 3 to 4 oxygen, yung chlorate magiging perchlorate. From 2 to 1 oxygen, so you will have chlorite, magiging hypochlorite. No? So, ganun lang yung naming system. Just copy the 8 and the ite. No? Then you affix the per sa ate or you affix the hypo sa ite. No? And the last rule is ito nga, rules in for anions derived by adding hydrogen. So if you added hydronium ion dito sa yung oxyanion and you still ended up with an ion, negatively charged pa rin siya, then you can use the word hydrogen or bi or dihydrogen kapag dalawa. So pag isa lang yung nilagay mong hydronium ion and still an ion yan, hydrogen or bicar or bi yung gagamitin mong prefix. Pag dalawa yung hydrogen na nalagay mo sa iyong oxy anion and you still ended up with another anion, no, such as this one, you will use the word dihydrogen naman. No? Again, kailan humihinto? Kailan humihinto? Kapag negative 1 na yung charge. No? So you can add 1 H plus dito. Bakit? Negative 1 charge plus positive 1 charge from hydronium ion, wala nang magiging total charge yon. So ano mangyayari? Hindi nagagana yung rules natin. Again, the rules ay for anions only. I have to reiterate that now. Anions lang yan, ha? Okay, so yun lang. Now, so in summary, instead na magpakahirap tayo, we can use this table na lang. Diba? Ayan na yung table, andyan na lahat. Ayan, so easy. Pero ano yung importance ng rules natin? Yun nga, no? Kasi not always naman, hindi naman parate, may table tayo at hand, no? Kunwari, nag face-to-face classes na tayo, tapos nakita ko kayo, o tanungin ko, pangalan ng ion na to, wala kayong table, no? So, yun. So, hindi naman always may table kayo at in hand, no? So, it will be better, no, if you remember the rules, no? Yun. Pero for our case, online learning tayo, I will allow you to use the table, no? Alam ko naman, nagte-table kayo, nag-google kayo sa quiz, no? Kayo bahala, no? Okay. Alam ko yan, no? So, yun lang. Pero, yun ha. You can memorize this or you can familiarize yourselves with the rules, no? As long as you know the rules, madali yung buhay, no? Pero yun nga, since this is the third time na discuss to sa inyo, you should be familiar na talaga, no? Ayan. Pero okay lang kahit hindi pa, no? Kasi ganun talaga, no? Chemistry requires time to for you to master it, no? So yun, no? It takes time para maging master. Okay, so that's the naming rules, no? Ngayon punta naman tayo sa pag-name ng ionic compounds, no? Before we go with the naming of ionic compounds, let's predict first how are we going to create the formulas of ionic compounds, no? Okay, so formulas of ionic compounds, no? So sabi natin, ionic compounds are combined cations and anions in right proportion. So there will be no charge in its final form. Meaning nun, there should be enough cations and anions, no? Para walang charge yung final product, no? Di ba yung last time ginawa nyo sa akin is, let's have aluminum nitride, kunwari. Di ba ginawa natin? Ginawa nyo yung electrons, di ba? Pinamigay nyo doon sa mga dots doon, no? Then, ano napansin nyo? For them to satisfy the octet rule, this required 1 aluminum and 1 nitrogen. So the formula is AlN, no? The charge of aluminum is positive 3. The charge of nitrogen is negative 3 because it accepted 3 electrons and lost 3 electrons as for aluminum, no? So, di ba ganyan yung ginagawa natin last time? Ngayon, hindi na tayo magaganyan kasi nakakatamad, no? So, paano na po, no? Ganito lang, you have to identify the charge of your ions, no? Requirement yan, no? Kailangan na kailangan talaga. Kabisado nyo yung charges nila. And the formula as well, no? Okay. So, yun. So, paano po namin malalaman yung tamang proportion ng cation and anion? So, you can do that by just crisscrossing their charges, no? Crisscross. Paano yon, no? Kunwari, si aluminum, 3 plus yan. Si nitrogen, negative 3. Yung 3 ni aluminum, ilalagay mo siya sa baba ni nitrogen. Yan yung crisscross. Yung 3 ni nitrogen, lalagay mo sa baba ni aluminum. So, Al3N3 yan, di ba? Pag divisible yan, reducible, pwede mo yan gawing ALN na lang, no? So, ganun. Anyway, pupuntahan naman natin yung mga rules na yan. Basta ang idea lang is that to get the formula of ionic compounds, you do the crisscross. Paano uli yung crisscross? The exponent ng metal, ilalagay mo sa non-metal subscript. Itong 3 na exponent, magiging subscript ni anion. Itong 3 na charge ni anion, magiging subscript ni cation. And you reduce the charges if possible. No? Okay, so let's have the rules. No? So let's have this. Suppose we have ionic compound composed of sodium and chloride ions. No? So NaCl. So paano natin kukunin yung formula? So this positive 1 here, pag wala nakalagay na 1, positive 1 lang yan. No? Pag plus lang yung nakalagay, positive 1 yan. So you get the positive 1 charge here. No? Kunin mo yung positive 1 charge dyan. Ilalagay mo siya as a subscript for Cl. And yung 1 ni Cl dito, ilalagay mo siya as a subscript of Na. Again, yung number lang, hindi kasama yung charge siya. Hindi mo ilalagay yung positive pati negative sa baba. Yung number lang. Okay? So yun. So bringing down the numbers, you will have Na1, Cl1. Okay? Saan galing tong 1 na to? Dito kay Cl. Di ba may negative 1 dyan? No? Nga wala na ngayon. No? Okay. Yung 1 dito, saan galing? Kay Na. Yung positive dyan. No? Pag binaba mo yung numbers, tanggalin mo na yung charge. So, the formula is Na1Cl1, but we do not write the subscript 1 because it is already obvious. No? Pag andyan na yung atom, ibig sabihin may isang atom kanyan. No? So, you don't have to use 1 kasi redundant siya. So, the formula will instead become NaCl. Wala na yung 1-1 na. 1-1. Ay, ayoko na mag-ml. So, yan, no? Ayan. So, ganun lang. So, what is this? Yan yung formula ng ion. Yan yung formula ng ionic compound composed of sodium and chloride ion. Sodium ion, chloride ion. So, yan yung formula. So, what will be the name of this compound? You just add the cation and the anion name. No? So, the name of Na plus is sodium ion. Rule number 1 yan sa cations, di ba? Ito, ang name ng Cl- ay chloride ion. That's rule number 1 sa anions. No? Monoatomic anion, so chloride. This is metal ion in the s orbital or the p orbital. So you just copy the name of the metal. No? Sodium, chloride. Pag pinagsama, sodium chloride, asin, di ba? Okay. So punta tayo dito. Next one. Teka lang. Para ka nag-aalaga ng bata sa pusa. Anyway, so let's proceed with the second rule. No? So sige, second rule. So you have your calcium ion. Again, the name of this ion is calcium ion. Calcium lang kasi nasa SNP orbital yan, di ba? Nasa S orbital yan. So the name is calcium lang. the name of the metal itself. Br, this is monoatomic anion. So the name is bromide, no? So calcium bromide, no? Yun na yung name, calcium bromide. Ang tanong, paano yung formula? So the formula is ganito. Yung 2 ni calcium, ilalagay mo as a subscript for bromine. Yung 1 ni bromine, ilalagay mo as the subscript for calcium. So yan. Ca1Br2. Saan galing yung 2? Kay calcium. Saan galing yung 1? Kay bromine. So again, yung 1, binubura natin. So the formula will be CaBr na lang. Na. So the name of the compound is calcium bromide with the formula of CaBr2. Na. Yung 2, galing yan kay calcium. Yung 1, galing kay bromine. Okay? Ganun lang. Let's have this now. The name of Ba2 plus is barium ion lang. Bakit siya barium lang? Because it is in the s orbital, no? S block siya. So the name of the ion is the name of the metal itself, no? Nasa second group siya sa periodic table kung meron kayo dyan, no? O minus 2, no? So again, this is monoatomic anion. So its name will be oxide, no? So this is barium, this is oxide. So ano yung name nila? Barium oxide, no? Pagsamahin mo lang. So ano gagawin sa formula? You crisscross the charges. This 2 will be the subscript of this oxygen. This 2 will be the subscript of the barium, no? So yan, magki-crisscross lang tayo. So we will have Ba2O2, no? And again, if the subscripts are reducible to lowest terms, you reduce it, no? Parehas dalawa yan. So if I divide the subscripts by 2, I will get 1, no? So the final formula will be BaO, no? BaO, no? No. So yun yung final formula, hindi Ba2O2. Again, you reduce the subscript whenever possible, no? Pag divisible sila pareho. Okay? So yun. Sir, does that mean na kunwari sir, magbabalik ako. Magre-reverse crisscross ako. What do I mean by that is from the formula, kukunin ko yung ions. Kunwari ganun na. Does that mean na yung oxygen negative 1, yung barium positive 1? Well, not really, no. Hindi ganyan yung case. Kunwari, aalamin mo yung charge na ito. Mas aalamin mo yung charge niyan. Pag nag-reverse crisscross kayo, di ba, alam nyo, 1 yung subscript dyan, 1 yung subscript dyan. So, ibig sabihin ba niyan, sir, barium is positive 1, oxygen is negative 1? No, no. So, you really have to be familiar with the location of your atoms, no? Kailangan alam nyo kung nasan yung atoms nyo. So, what I'm pertaining is, kailangan kabisado nyo yung charges talaga. Barium is in group 2. So, alam nyo, positive 2 talaga yan, no? Hindi yan nagiging positive 1. Positive 2 yan always. Oxygen is in group 6. So, hindi yan negative 1, negative 2 talaga yan, no? The reason why tigwa 1 lang yung yung subscript nila dito is because we reduce them to lowest term, ha? Okay? So, yan yung tip ko sa inyo. Remember the charges, no? Depending on the group number, may corresponding charge, no? So, yun. Hindi porket 1 yan, meaning nun 1 na yun dun, ha? No, no. Hindi porket 1 to, ibig sabihin 1 na dun. No. Kailangan alam nyo talaga yung formula nila. Formula ng ions and cations, no? That's why I told you, you can use this table, no? Andyan na yung mga charges, no? You just familiarize yourself, no? Best you can do is to memorize them or just be familiar, no? Okay? So, yun lang naman, no? It takes time, no? For you to remember all of those stuff, no? Okay? So, yun yung formula. BaO, BaO. The name is barium oxide. The name of this is barium. This is oxide. Monoatomic anion, eh. So, barium oxide. The formula is BaO. Okay. So, sir, paano kapag polyatomics, no? Okay. So, ganito ginagawa ko. If you have polyatomic ions, I enclose them with parentheses, no? So, paano uli, sir, malalaman kapag polyatomic ions? More than one atom. So, let's have this, NH4. No? This is, polyatomic cation. Bakit? lima yung atoms eh. 4 na hydrogen, isang nitrogen. So, polyatomic yan. So, what I do is ganito, no? I enclose them with parentheses, no? Yung charge na sa labas. So, ganun ginagawa ko. No? So, ganun din dito. Nilalagyan ko ng parentheses yung charge na sa labas ng parentheses. Why? No? Because there are some students, no, na ang ginagawa, pag nagki-criss-cross sila, yung 3, nilalagay sa loob, tinatabi kay 4. Tapos minumultiply nila. NH 4, 8, 12. NH 12 daw. Ako, nagugulat ako. Parang bulaga. No? Siyempre, masushook ka, di ba? Wow. Ang daming hydrogens na. So, walang ganun, ha? Never ninyong gagawin yon. That's why I want you to write the parentheses agad-agad. No? Lagyan nyo agad ng parentheses to prevent you from writing the charge inside the parentheses. Always nasa labas lang. Itong 1 dito, hindi mo yan imumultiply sa 4. Ilalagay mo yung 1 sa labas ng parentheses. This 3, itong 3 na to, you will not multiply it. Ay, nag-hey Siri daw ako. You will not multiply it dito kay 4. Hindi mo siya i-multiply kay 4. Sa labas siya ng parenthesis, ha? Be careful. That's why I'm telling you to write the parenthesis agad-agad sa iyong polyatomic ions. Ha? So again, crisscross, yung 1 dito mapupunta sa labas, yung 3 mapupunta sa labas. No? Hindi sa loob. So your formula will be NH4, close parenthesis, 3, parenthesis, PO4, close parenthesis, 1. Okay? Hindi hindi ganito ha. Baka may magganito eh. Tapos ginawa nyo 12 yan, no? Ay, 12 yan, sir. Ito 4. Mali yan, mali. X yan, X, ha? Always sa labas ng parenthesis yung subscript. Okay? Wala kang gagawin dito sa formula na yan. Yun sa labas lang yung pwede galawin. Okay? Then, again, pag 1 yung iyong coefficient, 1 yung subscript mo, pag 1 yung subscript, you can just remove it, no? Pwede mo na burahin yan. So, kapag 1 yung subscript ng parenthesis, no? Pwede mo na burahin yung entire parenthesis, no? So, you will have this. But take note, no? You should be able to recognize your ions, no? Ito yung buong cation ko, no? Itong buong to, yung anion ko, no? Kailangan familiar pa rin kayo, ha? Cation and ion, no? So, kailangan familiar kayo. Hindi porket nasa dulo yung oxygen, siya na yung anion. No. Wag ganon. Bad yun. Kailangan familiar kayo with the anions. Dapat you should recognize that this is phosphate ion. This is phosphate anion. This is ammonium cation. So, kailangan familiar pa rin kayo regardless. So, yan. So, yan. So, yan yung formula. NH4, close parenthesis 3, PO4. The name is ammonium phosphate. The name of this cation is ammonium. This one is phosphate because this is the common oxy and ion. Diba? So, yan. Ganun lang. Recognition is the key. No? And that's why you have exercises here sa chapter 4 PowerPoint natin. The answers are already included in the PowerPoint. No? So, kunwari, ito. Binuksan nyo yung PowerPoint nyo. Click on the notes, lalabas yung answers. Yan, lalabas yung mga answers. No? So, kaya download nyo na lang yung PowerPoint. Okay? So, download nyo yung PowerPoint. You can practice this at home. Nasa bahay naman pala kayo parate. So, you can practice this at your free time. No? But I'm going to answer just two of them. No? So, dalawa lang sasagutan ko sa mga items dito. Okay? So, dalawa lang para kayo mag-practice. No? Again, nasa notes lang yan. No? Tignan nyo lang. Yan dyan yung mga sagot. Okay? So, yan. So, practice lang. So, I will answer two of the problems here. Pati dalawa rin dyan, na. So, sige. I'll start with, 5 and 9. So, sige. So I'll start with 5. Okay. So for number 5, I have Cr2O3 now. So Cr2O3. If you are given the formula, the first thing you have to do is to identify the charges of your cation and your anion. Remember that, ha? So yan. I-trace back nyo yung charges nila. So ang 2 na to, the 2 kay chromium, that originally came from the negative 2 kay oxygen. Because again, oxygen, negative 2 talaga charge niyan, no? Okay, so keep that in mind. Yung 3 dito, most likely galing yan kay chromium 3+, no? So yan yung tip, no? You do the reverse crisscross. Reverse crisscross tawag ko dyan. So reverse crisscross, instead na pababa, pataas yung direction ng iyong numbers, no? So itong 3 na to, ayan ay galing kay chromium. Itong 2 na to, galing yung kay oxygen. Okay? So yan. So that means my chromium is positive 3 in charge. My oxygen is negative 2 in charge. The name of oxygen negative 2 is oxide. The name of Cr3 plus is chromium 3. Again, um, the common name method will not apply to chromium 3 plus kasi more than 2 yung kanyang charges. Again, because merong chromium 2, may chromium 3, may chromium 5, may chromium 6, di ba? So yan. So hindi gagana dito yung hindi gagana yung common method na. So ganun lang. Paano ulit? No? So paano nyo sasagutan yan? You identify the charges of your anions and your cations. No? You trace back by doing the reverse crisscross. Okay? So ganun lang. Okay, so I'll have the next example. Itong number 9. Okay, again, recognition. Recognize nyo. Ano kaya yung mga cations ko at anions, no? Yung Na, syempre, yan yung iyong cation. Sodium yan eh, metal yan eh. 'Di ba? Usually, ang metal ay cation, 'di ba? Okay. So that means the rest of this molecule, the rest of the atoms on the right side will be my anion. So, ganun ha. So, pag na-identify nyo yung cation, yung natira, automatically, anion yon. So, as you can see, yung natira ko, maraming atoms, no? So, I have H, I have P, then 4 na oxygen. So, that should give me an idea that ito ay polyatomic anions, no? So, anong gagawin ko? Lalagyan ko sila ng parenthesis. Ganon. Okay, so ganun yung mga tip ko sa inyo. Although, I will give you time na kayo bahala mag-develop ng technique, pero ako ganito ako magsagot eh. So, pag na-recognize ko na polyatomic anion siya, lagyan ko parenthesis na. This negative 2, saan kaya galing yan? Itong 2 na yan, galing yan kay HPO4 negative 2. Yung 1 sa labas nito, saan galing yan? Kay Na positive 1. So, this is Na plus. This is HPO4 negative 2. Of course, you may want to verify kung ang charge ng HPO4 ay negative 2 ba talaga. Paano mo ma-verify yon? Tingin kayo dito, HPO4. HPO4. Ito, HPO4 is negative 2 yung charge niya. So, yun. You may want to verify your charges na. Okay. So, asa na yun? Ito. So, tama naman yung charges ko. Na is positive 1 kasi group 1 yan. HPO4 negative 2. Negative 2 talaga yung charge niyan. No? This is an ion derived by adding hydronium ion. No? Okay, so paano ko ito papangalanan? No? Na is sodium. So sodium yan. Teka lang. Hindi na ako sanay magsulat na nakaupo. Sodium. So name yan ay sodium. How about HPO4? Again, yung hydrogen na yan, that is derived by adding hydronium ion sa oxygen ion. No? So your oxygen ion here is this one, the phosphate. No? Pero look, may isa kang hydrogen, no? May isa kang hydrogen. So, anong pwedeng name niyan? Pwede yung hydrogen phosphate. Pwede yung biphosphate, no? So, ibig sabihin, dalawa yung pwede kong names dyan, no? So, I can name it as sodium hydrogen phosphate. Pwede ring sodium biphosphate, no? So, ganun ha. Ganun lang yung tip ko sa inyo, no? So, again, paano yung tip, no? Pag may nakakita kang pag na-identify mo yung metal, that means the remaining atoms are your anions. You recognize your oxyanions. No? This time, I recognize PO4 as phosphate. Then, tignan mo, may isang hydrogen na nakatabi sa phosphate. No? So, meaning, I will use the rule number 4 sa anions. No? May mingming dito ka. Ayan. Okay. So, yun. I will use the rule number 4 sa anions. Okay. So, isang hydrogen yan. So, pwedeng gawin ko hydrogen phosphate o kaya biphosphate. So, dalawa yung names niya. Sodium hydrogen phosphate, sodium biphosphate. No? Okay? So, kayo na bahala sa ibang items. No? I will leave that to you for you to practice. Magsasagot ako ng dalawa naman dito. Number 1. And ito, number 4. So 1 and 4. So I will start with ferrous sulfate now. So ferrous, kailan familiar na kayo ha? Ang ferrous ay Fe2+. Ang sulfate ay SO4 negative 2. Okay. So ano pa susunod kong gagawin? Since I have my ions, I can do the crisscross. No? So pwede ko i-crisscross. Again, ang iyong polyatomic anions, lagyan ng parenthesis. Yung 2, ilalagay sa baba ni SO2. Ito, ilalagay sa baba ni Fe. Okay. So, my formula will be Fe2SO4 2. Hindi sa loob yung 2 ha. Hindi dito sa loob yung 2. Kailangan nasa labas. Then, look, no? Look at my subscripts. Yan, purple para army. So, yan. Look at my subscripts. Parehas silang 2. That means I can reduce that to lowest terms. So, yung 2 and 2, pwede ko i-divide by 2 for me to get 1 na. So, magiging Fe1, SO4, 1. Again, pag 1 yung subscript, you can erase them na. So, my final formula will be FeSO4. Ito yung nasa gamot ninyo, no? Ferrous sulfate, FeSO4. Okay. And let's have another one, calcium hydrogen carbonate. Erase ko lang. Calcium. Okay, so calcium hydrogen carbonate. Ito, calcium. Yun yung iyong cation. So, alam mo ang formula ng Ca2+. Because calcium is in group 2. Ang hydrogen carbonate, this is your anion. Hydrogen, isang hydrogen carbonate, CO3. Ang question dyan, ano yung charge? No? So, you can look up sa table. Negative 1 yung charge niyan. Pwede kayo tumingin dito. No? Yun. Nakikita nyo dyan, hydrogen carbonate. Negative 1 yung charge. No? Yan. Pero better kung kabisado nyo, no? Para mabilis. Okay, so negative 1 yung aking charge. Then what's next? Polyatomic ions, lalagyan ko ng parenthesis. Yung 2, nasa labas. Yung 1, nasa baba. So the formula is Ca1, HCO3, 2. Or CaHCO3, 2. Okay, so ganun lang yung techniques natin. Ayan, yung upuan maingay na. So, ganun lang yung tips ha. So, ganun lang ang tips. Kaya na bahala mag-develop ng inyong sariling techniques. The answers are already posted naman sa PowerPoint na. So, kayo na bahala mag-practice dyan. No? Okay. So, with that, no, medyo patapos na tayo. Just some few disclaimers, no. Hindi kasama sa coverage ng quiz yung acids Although you can check this, no? Check mo lang yung naming nila. Yung PowerPoint naman, may recording yan ng boses ko. So, parang nagkaklase lang din tayo doon, no? So, yan. I will not discuss this anymore, the formulas of acid, no? Pero ang idea lang dyan sa acid, yung iyong cation ay solely hydronium ion. Then the number of H plus is equal to the charge of the anion pair, no? So, kung negative 2 yung iyong anion, dapat dalawa yung H plus. So, H2SO4 ang magiging formula. So, how do you name them? Andiyan na yung rules, no? Madali lang yung rules, no? Yung bases, ganun din, no? Ang anion mo naman dito ay solely hydroxide, no? And the number of OH corresponds to the charge of your cation. Kung positive 2 yung kayong cation, dapat dalawa yung OH mo. And ayan yung naming, no? Madali lang yan, no? Hydrates, meaning lang yan, may water lang. Siguro you can read this na, no? Ito yung focus natin, yung binary molecules, no? Kasi ang coverage lang daw is ionic compounds and binary molecules. So yung acids, yung bases, yung hydrates, ano na yan, no? Easy to understand naman yung mga nandito, no? Kasi ganun lang yung rules nila, basic lang, no? So focus tayo dito sa binary molecules na, no? So you can self-study those items na lang. Binary molecules tayo. So when we say binary molecules, we are pertaining to covalent molecules, no? Remember, dalawa yung ating compounds, pwedeng ionic, pwedeng covalent, di ba? Okay. Yung ionic, tapos na tayo, no? Daming rules dyan eh. Kaya ayaw ko rin yan eh. Yung covalent, madali lang sila pangalanan, no? So, how can you recognize, paano mo ma-recognize kung covalent molecules yan? Number one, with no charge. Number 2, no metal. Ayan yung mga recognition skills, tips ko dyan, no? So kapag yung molecule, wala siyang charge at walang metal, that means that is a covalent molecule or covalent substance or binary molecule, no? Okay, so ganun yung idea. Pag walang charge, wala siyang 3, negative 2, negative 1, walang ganun, no? And walang metal, no? So carbon is not metal, oxygen is not metal, same goes for other atoms, no? So yeah. So that means you have binary molecules, no? Okay. So how are you going to name this, no? So sabi dito, the naming is similar to that of the ionic compound, pero mas easy, no? Mas madali, no? Okay, so yan. Yan ang tip ko. Paano mo malalaman na covalent? Walang charge, walang metal. Puro non-metal at walang charge. Okay? So yan, so paano natin yan papangalanan, no? Bago tayo pumunta sa pangalan, punta muna tayo sa formula. How do we write the proper formula? So siguro nagtataka kayo, no? Bakit kaya H2O yan? Bakit hindi pwedeng OH2, no? Ganito kasi, no? May batas. Ang sabi dito sa batas, number 1, oxygens are written at the last parate, no? So oxygens are written on the last part always, no? And ano pa? The element farther to the left is usually written first, no? Yung element na nasa left ay yung sinusulat na una. Ayun nga, so for the case of water, hindi siya pwedeng OH2. H2O always yan. Bakit? Your oxygens will be written on the last, always nasa dulo siya, and hydrogen is on the leftmost side of the periodic table. So it should come first, no? So ganun lang sa CO2, no? So CO2, oxygen sa dulo, hindi pwede yung O2C, no? Bakit? Oxygen should always be on the last and carbon is on the left side of oxygen, no? Ano pa? Ayun lang. So ganun lang. So ito, similar yan dito sa mga anions natin, ClO4. No? Oxygens are always written last, so we do not write it as O4Cl minus. No? ClO4, yan. Kasi oxygen is always on the last. No? And next one. So, ang formula naman, paano daw kung nasa same group sila ng periodic table? Meaning walang left, walang right, no? So, ganun pa rin, no? Oxygen at the last. So, nasa dulo pa rin si oxygen. And you write the heaviest element first, no? let's have SO2. Sulfur and oxygen are both in this group 6 now, but sulfur is heavier than oxygen. 32 yung atomic mass ni sulfur, si oxygen ay 16. No? So, in writing SO2, it should be written as SO2, not O2S. Oh, okay. So, hindi siya O2S. Bakit? Oo, namingming. Kasi ang sulfur ay heavier than oxygen, and oxygen are always written at the last. No? So, once you know the proper way of writing covalent molecules, so alam na natin kung paano yung arrangement, no? We can start identifying the rules. No? Madali lang yung rules. So, ito yung rules. No? The second element will have the suffix ide. No? Ide. No? Para siyang anion. Pero hindi siya anion ha. It just so happen the second element siya. Kaya ide yung suffix niya. Then, we use Greek prefixes no, to indicate the number of atoms no, in the second element. Even the first element. No. So, ginagamitan natin sila ng Greek prefixes to indicate the number. However, for the first element, you do not write mono. Bawal yung mono sa first element. Pwedeng di, pwedeng tri, pwedeng tetra, pwedeng penta, pero wag mono for the first element. For the second element, pwede yung mono. Okay? And the last rule is this one. If the second element name begins with vowels such as oxide, no? Yung oxide O yung first letter niya, so you drop the A and the O in the prefix. No? That pertains to the mono and the tetra. No? So kunwari may mono oxide ka, so ano gagawin mo? You drop the A and the O in the prefix. No? Because again, oxide starts with a vowel, so the O in your prefix should be removed now. Ayan. Ganon din sa pag tetraoxide, no? Hindi siya tetraoxide. Again, you will remove the A sa prefix pag ganyan. Okay. So, ganon yung case. So, this is monoxide, this is tetroxide. Not monooxide, not tetraoxide. Okay? So, ayan. So, madali na lang yung rules, no? So, ayan. NF3. Okay? So, as you can see, we have one nitrogen. So, hindi pwedeng mono nitrogen, ha? Kasi again, the first element should not bear the prefix mono. So, nitrogen lang yan, not mono nitrogen. No? Trifluoride. Bakit tatlong fluoride? Tri kasi tatlong fluorine. Ide because this is the second element. Nitrogen, trifluoride. Nitrogen, the first element. Trifluoride, tatlong fluorine, and second element siya. Okay, take note, walang mono for the first atom. Cl2O. Dalawang chlorine, so dichlorine. Isang oxygen, monoxide. No? Hindi siya monooxide. Again, you drop the O sa sa prefix. No? It's not monooxide, it's monoxide lang. N2O4. Dalawang nitrogen, dinitrogen, apat na oxygen, tetroxide. Again, yung A, binubura, tetroxide lang ang matitira. P4S10, tetraphosphorus, decasulfide. No? Again, madali lang yung rules. No? The second element will always have the ide suffix. Ide. Then, the first element will not have the mono prefix, no? Such as this one. Hindi siya mono nitrogen. Nitrogen lang yan. Pero kapag dalawa yan, doon ka na mag-start gumamit ng Greek prefixes. Di, tri, tetra, so on so forth. And kapag yung starting ng second element mo ay vowel such as oxide, you drop the A and the O sa Greek prefix now. Yung A and O lang. Okay? So, ayan. So, ganun lang yung rules. Ganun lang siya ka-simple. No? So, we can end this. No? Tapusin na natin. Sagutan lang natin to. SO2. So, it's not monosulfur, ha? Hindi siya monosulfur. Kunwari, sulfur lang. Monosulfur, X. Bawal mag-mono for the first element. Second element, dalawang oxygen. So, pwede yung dioxide, no? So, sulfur dioxide, SO2. PCl5, hindi yan monophosphorus, no? That's just phosphorus. Limang chlorine. So, tetrachloride, no? Ay, hindi. Pentachloride pala. Pentachloride. No? Limang chlorine. N2O3. Dalawang nitrogen. So, dinitrogen. Tatlong oxygen. So, that's trioxide. No? Dinitrogen trioxide. Mahangin sa labas eh. And then silicon tetrabromide, silicon. So pag walang mono, ay pag silicon lang, ibig sabihin isang atom lang yan. So silicon tetrabromide, apat na bromine, Br4. Carbon dioxide, isang carbon lang, dalawang oxygen. Carbon monoxide, isang carbon lang, and isang oxygen lang. So those are the rules in naming binary molecules. Again, balikan lang natin in summary. Summarize natin. Summarize. Okay, so formula in writing binary molecules, always the oxygen are written at the last. Last sila parate. Kumbaga sa Lewis structure, sila yung terminal atoms parate. I don't know if nakapag-Lewis structures na kayo, pero yan. Nasa dulo sila parate. The element on the leftmost side of the periodic table is usually written first. Pero yung oxygen always at the last. The heaviest element are also written first, no? And oxygen is always on the last pa rin, no? So, ganun, keep in mind, na nasa dulo parati yung oxygen. Okay, so, yan lang. So, yan lang. Tapos na tayo. Yung organic molecules sa finals period pa yan, after midterms. So anyway, ayun, I will give you the liberty, no, to practice this on your own. You have the notes naman. All the answers are written here. So, pero syempre before you check the answers, mag-practice muna kayo na sagutan niyo muna to bago kayo tumingin dito. Okay. Then, ayan. So, ayan then so binilagay ko na rin yung mga sagot diyan, no. So siguro we're done na, no? So yun lang yung coverage ng discussion natin today, no? Next week we will start discussing chemical reactions, no? So medyo mahaba tong chemical reactions. That's why 2 meetings uli ito, no? 2 weeks to. Okay, so yun lang naman, no? Siguro with that, okay na tayo, no? So do you have any questions or ayun, no? Basta you download chapter 4, ha? Download the PowerPoint na lang para mas okay kasi andun lahat ng rules, no? And again, depende to sa style ng learning nyo. Kung gusto nyo magkabisado, edi go. Andito yung shortcuts, no? You can use this while having the quiz. Pwede nyo kabisaduhin, pwedeng hindi, kayo bahala. As long as you know how to do the crisscrossing, as long as you know how to do that, no? How to obtain the names from the formula and the formula from the names, no? And vice versa, no? So you're good to go, no? Ano itsura ng quiz nyo dyan, no? Pakita ko na, no? Kasi open ko siya kaninang madaling araw, mga ganong oras lang kasi naayos yung canvas, medyo na-stress din ako, no? So ano itsura ng quiz nyo dyan? Madali lang, pakita ko na, no? Pare-pares lang naman kayo na makikita, So, ito yung itsura ng quiz nyo. Ayan. So, for the first question, ito yung atoms, no? Yung kanilang corresponding charge, yung valence electrons, and ano yung noble gas na ginagaya nila, no? So, ayan. You just fill all those blanks, no? Okay. So, second part niyan, ito yung formula naming. So, paano yan? You will just combine the cations on your left side. Ang anions nasa taas, no? So you combine this, no? Pb4 plus MnO4. Pagsamahin mo yan, yung crisscross. Ito yung formula. PbMnO4 subscript 4. No? So yan. Then you write the name. So yung naming dyan, pwedeng dalawa, di ba? Pwedeng stock, pwedeng stock, pwedeng ano sabi dun sa isa? Common, no? So you just provide one, no? One of them, no? Such as this one, lead 4 phosphite or plumbic phosphite. Kung maglalagay kayo ng sagot dyan, isa lang. Pwedeng lead 4 phosphite lang or plumbic phosphite. No? Kay bahala. No? Again, may rules naman dito kung paano ilalagay yung formula. and yung names na. So just follow the rules na. So nasa taas yung formula, nasa babang box yung names. Ganun lang. And then the last part, madali lang. Ito yung siguro pinamadaling quiz sa inyo. uh, yung formula lang ng binary molecules. No? Dihydrogen monoxide, lagay mo dyan. SF6, ano kaya name niyan? NO, ano kaya name niyan? So on and so forth. No? So ganun lang. So that's worth 20 points. No? Okay? So again, bakit ko kailangan i-point out yung importance ng lesson na to? No? Ito yung reason. Google tayo. Ito nangyari to sa United States, no? Alam mo naman, sa United States, hindi lahat matatalino. May nag-parody. I don't know kung kailan to, no? Kwento lang din to sa akin. 1983, April Fool's Day, ha? Pag April Fool's Day talaga lumalabas yung mga mga mabilis mahulog sa fake news. Okay, so it happened in 1983. Sabi nila, alam ko sa isang radio talk show to na yung oxygen, yung tubig daw natin ay contaminated with dihydrogen monoxide. Ano daw yung mga dulot ng dihydrogen monoxide? Ito daw yung mga sabi, no? Kung ano daw, contributor yan ng greenhouse effects, pwede daw yan makasunog, pwede daw yan mag-erode ng lupa, pwede daw yan mag-cause ng pangangalawang. Malamang tubig yan eh. No? Again, dihydrogen monoxide, ang formula na H2O lang. No? So, yun, if you don't know the name, no, or if you don't know the chemical formulas, madali ka mafo-fall dito sa parody na to, sa April Fool's stuff na to, no. So maraming nagulantang, no. Actually, alam ko may nagtanong pa daw sa government nila, no, sa state nila, bakit niyo nilalagyan ng dihydrogen monoxide yung tubig namin? Girl, yung dihydrogen monoxide ay H2O lang. Tubig lang din yan. Kasi 'di ba, yung tubig na kasunog naman talaga pag pinakuluan mo. Totoo naman 'yon. Yung tubig na ka-erode talaga 'yan. Siyempre, no. Erosion. Kailangan may tubig talaga 'yon pag ganun. Nakakalawang 'yan. Siyempre, tubig 'yan eh. Nakakalawang talaga 'yan, no. May cause electrical failure. Siyempre, tubig 'yan. Bawal basain ang electronics with water. Has been found in excised tumors of terminal cancer patients. Siyempre, nagtutubig yung mga tumor, diba? Ginagamit din daw siya sa nuclear power plants, so on and so forth. In many forms of cruel animal research, malamang papainumin mo yung mga animals. Diba? As long as you don't know the importance of the topics I discussed kanina, baka ma-fall ka dito sa mga ganyan. No? And ito yung failure din ng mga anti-vaxxers, no? Mga hindi naniniwala sa science. No? They don't know the names kasi. Hindi nila alam yung names ng formula. Hindi sila informed. That's why they act that way. And our task, no, kayo as future medtechs, ako, siguro naman may iba sa inyo magiging professors din, no? Ibang magpupunta sa research, no? So our goal here in our community, bilang tayo yung may mga smart persons sa society, our goal is to educate them how to name the formulas, no? Na ang dihydrogen monoxide is basically tubig lang and there's nothing to worry about that, no? So ganun. Especially during COVID-19 times na. So medyo marami kasing mga anti-vaxxer pa rin. So our goal, no, as elite sa society, elite in terms of isip, no, matalino naman tayo. Our goal is to educate the people about the names of the chemical compounds, no, and so on and so forth, no. So yun yung prime goal natin dito, na yun yung importance ng lessons natin sa chemistry. Tuturuan natin yung mga walang alam. Pero kapag nainis ka na sa kanila, wag mo na pansinin, no? I-block mo na lang. So yan, no? Ang goal natin is turuan yung mga ignorante, no? So the lesser yung ignorante sa Pilipinas, the better the society will be, no? So yan, so keep on educating people, no? Hindi naman lahat kasi pinagpala para magkaroon ng education. So turuan na lang natin, no? So yun lang. Don't hate, no? Teach na lang. Pero kapag nakakainis na talaga, yan, huwag niyo napansinin, no? Kasi ako medyo ganun na. Pag ako nainis bahala ka dyan, no? Basta yun na, turuan niyo yung mga taong hindi aware sa chemistry terms, no? Madali lang naman sila sabihan eh. Magigets din nila yan. Okay? Okay, so yun lang. Yun ang importance ng lesson natin para hindi magaya tayo sa mga taong tulad ng mga tao na to sa United States, no? Isang state kaya to? Santa Cruz, California to. Sa California, may mga ganitong tao. So, yan na. So, yun lang. Yun ang importance ng lesson natin. Okay? Again, awareness. No? Bawasan ang illiteracy. So, yun lang. With that, I will end my class discussion. So, yan. So, again, you can check the PowerPoint. All the answers are already in the PowerPoint. No? And the quiz, siya yung pinakamadaling quiz so far. No? So, yan. You can answer stuff there. No? So, yan. So, next week, we will start our discussion on chemical reactions. Another 2 weeks lesson yun na. So, yan. So, with that na, so thank you very much for your participation. Hopefully, you help us, no, kaming mga teacher nyo, no, you help us in educating the people, no, the Filipino people. Kasi, ang realidad, maraming ignoranteng Pilipino. Turuan na lang natin, nakakaawa. So, yan ha. Especially in times of fake news, no, and COVID-19, no. So, may responsibility tayo bilang matatalinong tao. Okay? So, yun lang. So, yan. So, thank you very much for your participation. I hope you got something, no? Mga tips. No? And yan. I will upload the class lecture on YouTube again. Ayan. So, good luck. And if you have any other concerns, don't hesitate to message me. So, yan lang. So, thank you very much. No? So, salamat po sa pag-attend.